Okay, so now that it's been almost a week since the NFC Championship and the AFC Championship, I guess I need to talk about it. I would have definitely done this a lot sooner, but just with the way my schedule was, I was busy Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Actually, I don't know. I think I was off on Monday, but I just didn't really want to record yet. I don't think I had anything written down. But here we are. Let's go ahead and talk about it. I'm not going to do my Super Bowl picks in this. I want to do that like a couple days before the Super Bowl. I want to do like, here's my predictions for all the NFL honors. Here's my prediction for the Super Bowl. And, excuse me, given that this is very recent and big NFL news, I guess I'll actually say this first. Sean Payton was hired by the Broncos to be their new head coach. The Saints are getting the Broncos. I almost said number one overall pick, but they're getting their first round draft pick. I believe their second round pick for next year. I've heard a little bit of conflicting shit about that. Like, I know it's the number one, or excuse me, their first rounder that they have from San Francisco because of the Bradley. No, that's from. Sorry. Okay, so I'm trying to remember this because I think it's the Dolphins had the number 3 overall pick a couple years ago. The 49ers traded up to that to get Trey Lance. So it was the Dolphins pick, which then they traded to the Broncos to get Bradley Chubb. That's where this is. So this, I don't think it's number 29 because the Dolphins were out in the first round of the playoffs. It's like 23rd or some shit. I don't know the exact number. But I think that's where it was. So this pick has changed a lot of hands, actually. And if the Saints do end up trying to trade up for a quarterback, it might change hands again, which would just be really funny, just how it's been weirdly going. But I've heard conflicting things about if it's a second next year, if it's a second this year, if it's 2 second-round picks, one this year and one next year. Shit that could maybe use to get a package to go up and get a guy, if that's what you really want to do. I don't know. I don't really want to do a QB carousel thing right now. I know right now there's a lot of talks about Carr going to the Saints. I thought he was going to end up with the Jets. Maybe he still does. Maybe he comes here. Maybe the Saints try to trade for Lamar. I mean, he's going to be a free agent, but they might try to tag him, so there might be like a sign-in trade. Anyways, a lot of big shit, but the Sean Payton thing is done, and Saints fans have a first over... I keep saying first overall, and I don't know why, but Saints fans finally have a pick in the first round of the draft, which is what we have been wanting all season, so that's a W. Excuse me. Broncos get a proven head coach. I hope he does well there. Obviously, if he plays the Saints, I hope they lose, they being the Broncos, but I generally like Russell Wilson. I like Sean Payton. I hope it goes well. What do you know? He'll actually have a defense, which they're I think it was like a lot of the recent Saints teams, the defense has been good, but man, there were some bad seasons defensively with Sean as the head coach, which, again, hopefully, I wish them all the best. The other big NFL news, though, getting into the games, is Tom Brady retired. Again. This time seemingly for good, but last time was also seemingly for good. I really don't want to be the guy who speculates about, like, well, is this for real? Like, let's really try to dig into, like, what Tom was saying and what he was feeling. Because, like, I watched the video. It was very short, but as he said, he's like, you know, like, I gave my big retirement speech last time, and I don't really want to do that again. But you could hear the emotion in his voice. Like, it sounds like, if I'm being honest, it sounds like he's done. I also won't really believe it, though, until we're a good chunk of the way through next season. Because someone's going to give him a call. Whether it is like before free agency or during free agency, whether it's after the draft, there will be a notable QB injury sometime in the 2023 season. It's going to happen. It always happens. There is going to be someone, like a team that has to go to a backup at some point in the year. Someone is going to give Brady a call, and if Brady says, no, I'm done. I'm not going to do this anymore. I am moved on. I no longer either I don't want to play or I don't feel like I can continue to do so, I'm good. Then I'll believe it. But until that happens, and there's no real like measuring point for that, because that could happen any time during next season. Like, it could literally be like, oh shit, a team that was like poised to go on a Super Bowl run just lost their QB and they might be fucked. Now they're going to call Tom Brady at the very end and he kind of steps in. Like, I could see it happening. Again, I'm not wishing injury on anybody. And if he is done, he is done. And I wish him all the best in his retirement. But given what happened last time, I'm just not ready to believe it yet. But I'm also not going to, like, because I do want to, like, after the season, kind of do like a give me a second to untangle my tongue. Now that my tongue has been untangled, I want to do a QB carousel style thing after the season is finished. Excuse me, after the Super Bowl, but before the draft. And think, these are the top QBs in the draft. These are some of the guys that are going to be free agents, excuse me, or might be traded. I'm not going to include Brady in that, given his retirement. But I would not be surprised if someone manages to swoop in and give him one last ride. So with all that being said, now let's talk about the two games that were played last week. Niners-Eagles, Bengals-Chiefs. Niners-Eagles is first, which I have to admit, I did not watch most of it. I was watching Puss in Boots 2 with my roommates. So I missed the first half, but I was able to watch the second half. So, on the one hand, I want to just say, it's like, man, poor fucking 49ers, man. They lost 4 different quarterbacks over the course of the year. Like, that's crazy. Not a lot of teams can recover from that. Last year, the Saints, after losing Jameis Winston, could not recover from losing one. That's fucking wild that they were able to get that far. On the other hand, I don't want to say poor 49ers, because if you've lost 4 quarterbacks, like 3 starters, and then another dude in a game where you lost the guy who started the game, there's something wrong. There's something wrong with the O-line. There's something wrong with the scheming. There's something wrong with the training. Like, there has to be. That should not be happening that regularly in a season. It's weird. And again, like, maybe it is just like, yeah, football, it's, as Tree says at the end of every video, I love urinating Tree, one of my favorite channels. Football is a brutal game. Sometimes shit happens. But to 4 different guys and 2 in one game, man, they need to figure shit out. And it's not the only time that's happened. I think, like, Jimmy G's first season, he broke his foot. And then I think, like, his next season, or, like, the one after. Okay, so I think it was Shanahan's first season in San Francisco. Jimmy G broke his foot. Next season, they went to the Super Bowl. And when Jimmy G was healthy. And then I think the season after, he was injured and, like, didn't play most of the year, if I'm remembering correctly. So, again, there's a history issue with Jimmy. But is that a Jimmy thing? Or, like, with this season, like, maybe that's just a San Francisco thing. And that's something they really need to work on. But, yeah, like, they were starting their 3rd-string quarterback, and very early on in the game, he couldn't throw. They threw in the 4th-stringer, who got concussed. And then, he had a big fumble, and then later he got concussed. So they had to bring in the guy who couldn't throw, and at that point, it was just game over. Philly's offense is fantastic. Philly's defense is nasty. If both teams were at full strength, I still think the Eagles would win. I kept seeing a lot of stuff about how, man, this game is rigged. This game was bullshit. Can you believe all the flags that were going against the Niners? It's insane. Or all the bullshit calls that went the Eagles' way. That Devontae Smith 4th down catch was not a catch. I will say that. I feel like most people would agree with that. But if it was called a catch on the field, because, where the official was standing, you literally cannot see the ball move from there. so I don't blame him for calling it a catch. That's on San Francisco to challenge it. 100%. Is it the wrong call? Sure. I will not deny that. You have to challenge that. And if you see the receiver like getting up and trying to hurry up the offense because he knows he didn't catch the ball, you have to challenge that. That's on Shanahan. With his QB situation in this game being what it was, I on the one hand, I'm like, okay, it's a Shanahan offense and a meaningful, like, huge playoff game where they did not score in the fourth quarter. In this situation, I can give him some slack because of the situation. Like, yeah, but like, what the fuck are you gonna do? Your QB can't throw the ball because he got injured. His backup got injured. So now you have to use this dude. You have to run it every play. And the defense knows what you're gonna do, so they're not scared. You're not gonna make any progress. But on the other hand, this is a problem. When he was the offensive coordinator for the Falcons for 28-3, that Super Bowl against the Chiefs, I don't remember if they scored in the fourth quarter of the NFC Championship game last year. They might have, but I don't remember off the top of my head. That's at worst 4 for 4, or it's 3 out of 4. But either way, that's not good. And again, this one has like an asterisk, but it's still a recurring problem. I guess that's a couple recurring problems. They were unable to score in the fourth quarter and just QB's getting injured. And then, but going back to the flag thing, quite a few of the flags I saw against the 49ers, like defensive holding, face masks, and all that shit, those were good penalties. Like, it's not just like, oh man, like they were getting, and granted, again, there's a lot I didn't see, so I don't know if the Eagles were doing very similar things when they were on defense and getting away with it. I know Lane Johnson apparently has a bad habit with false starts that don't get called, but apparently, like, there's a kind of rule where I don't know exactly what it is. I haven't looked into it, but apparently it's a thing where it's not actually a false start, which is why it doesn't get called. Excuse me. I think Andrew Whitworth, who's like a famous left tackle, he got his ring with the Rams last year. Good for him, by the way. I think he wrote like a column about it. It's like, this is why it is, like, because of the way the rule is written, that is not actually a false start. It's with something. But a lot of what the 49ers were doing, these are penalties. You can be a good defense. You can play aggressive. You can play risky. But that is the inherent risk. And it did not work out. I also remember watching a dude throwing left hooks to try to jam the ball, which granted, you can do that. Like, you can try to knock the ball out and punch the ball out, but as you know, the guy like can't move and you're just like, I know what you're doing, but I mean, come on, man. And then of course, because I saw this, when Trent Williams just slammed a dude onto the ground, and I'm like, oh man. I was actually a little surprised they didn't just call the game, because at that point the score was, 31-7? With 4 minutes left. At that point, the game was over. And I honestly thought, it's like, they literally, like, the fucking sidelines cleared with people going onto the field. They're like, go back to the sidelines, go back to the sidelines, go back to the sidelines. Like, they might just call the game and say, no. Your team is undisciplined. They've been all undisciplined all day, and now they're slamming people to the ground. You're down, 31-7, that's 24 points. You're down 24 points with 4 minutes to go. We're done. It would have shocked me to, like, call an NFC championship, but also, at that point, again, they had no QB. They literally didn't. It was done. It wouldn't have shocked. But I called the Eagles to win. I mean, I was correct in both games. I said the Eagles and the Chiefs. So I'm what? 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm 9-3 in the playoffs. So 75%, that's not bad. I'll take that. I hope when I make my Super Bowl pick, I get it right. But moving on to the Bengals-Chiefs game. Okay. I watched the entire game. I mean, there might have been like a play or two that I missed, like if I was in the bathroom or getting food, but like I was able to watch the whole thing. I understand why people took umbrage with a lot of the things that happened in the game, with some of the officiating things. Here is my take on it. Both teams had chances to win the game, and both teams made mistakes. Both teams had big moments that were taken away by the officials. And I actually wrote a few down that I was able to think of. Let's see. Now, some of these are going to be taken away by officials. Some of these are not. So starting with the Chiefs. Kadarius Toney dropping that touchdown on the first drive. They could have called it a touchdown on the field. They did not. It was challenged, reviewed. They could have called that a touchdown on review. They did not. Chiefs took 3. On their next drive, there was a holding. The Chiefs scored a touchdown. It was either like Pacheco or McKinnon. I don't remember which. But one of the running backs scored a touchdown, but it was called back because of a hold. Chiefs ended up settling for 3. So that is a mistake, and also officiating going against Kansas City. Again, Kansas City mistakes. They had at least 2, possibly 3 drives that stalled out around the Cincy 40. This team, like, it was real, because I was rooting for the Chiefs. My dad's a Chiefs fan. I'm watching it with him. Like, they're moving the ball. They're right there, and it's not really field goal range. If you get just a little closer, you can maybe do it, and just consistently coming up short. They had chances to put them away, and they just didn't take it. There was one of their returns, because they had 2 really big returns in the game. The one on the last drive, which did have and there was like a block in the back that wasn't called. The one on the drive before was also a big return, but also got called back. We had another mistake by the Chiefs that was caught by the officials. And then there was the Mahomes fumble, which again, had nothing to do with the officials. But I remember that I was like, you're up 7. You're driving. I think that was another drive that actually kind of stalled out around the Cincy 40. So there were like 3 of them, because I think there were 2 punts and then that one. Which, I mean, human error, it happens. It 100% happens, but that was weird to watch. That was really fucking bizarre. I was like, you guys are up 7. This is a team. This is a good defense. This is an offense that can get it going at any time. Your games against this team is always close. There's a lot of just animosity and bad blood. You have to step on their throats, and then that happens, and the Bengals were able to tie the game. You're like, if the Chiefs lose, that's gonna be the thing we remember. Looking at the Bengals, some of their big mistakes, some of which, things that were... Oh, actually, there were... Okay, sorry. There was actually another big thing that the Chiefs lost out on. It was an interception because they had picked off Burrow. I think it was pretty deep in Cincy territory, but the refs called PI on it, which it was. The guy did arrive just a little too early, but you could see the dude gets tackled and then the ball arrives. It was a good call, but another thing that, if the refs really wanted the Chiefs to win, they could have just not called PI on that. And you can argue, it's it's rigged. They need to help the Chiefs win, but they're going to let them play early on, or you can't make it too obvious. Sure, but I don't know. But anyways, looking at the Bengals, some of their big mistakes. There was that throw by Burrow, I believe it was on 3rd down, a deep throw where he hit Chase in the helmet, but Chase wasn't able to catch it. There was the Hayden Hurst misconnection in the end zone. There was a tipped ball. Actually, there were a couple. There was a deep shot to, I think it was to Higgins, that got tipped and intercepted. There was another throw on the sideline that I think would have converted a 3rd down, but it got tipped. Not intercepted, but it was incomplete. That was just good defense by the Chiefs. Burrow threw another interception. Multiple times he got sacked. He had a lot of big-time 3rd down conversions, but... the big sacks. There was a sack on the last drive. That was their last play offensively of the season, was Burrow getting sacked. Right before that, yes, was the intentional grounding, which some people have said, they're look at that. He's got a receiver in the area. He's not that far off. Come on. yeah, it should be a call, but on the other hand, it's like, well, the QB is directly under pressure and the ball did not get back to the line of scrimmage and he's still in the box. It's, like, I could see it, I cannot see it. I will say this about intentional grounding. There's really, really specific rules. And whenever I see a QB, like, okay, so when a QB is in the pocket and they're like, all right, 1 second, 2 second, no one's open, throw it away, it doesn't bother me. I'm like, all right, cool. You had a play, the play wasn't there, you just got rid of it before you were like under pressure. That's fine. When a QB is under pressure and there's a dude right at him and he just throws it into the ground and it's not called, it bothers me. Even if it's, under the letter of the law, it's like, well, technically, there was a receiver in the area. It's like, yeah, but he threw it at his receiver's feet knowing that the receiver wasn't going to catch it. I know it's the right call. I just don't like seeing it. Is it a smart play? And like Burrow does it a lot. It's like, is it a smart play? Yes, he is recognizing I'm not going to be able to get this off. Like the play is not going to develop. Let me just end it real quick. Live to fight another day. It makes sense. But me personally, it's just not something I like to watch. So I was like, I'm glad to finally see this fucking thing get called, if I'm being completely transparent. Oh, shoot. Sorry, I'm trying to see some of these other notes. Okay, so just some of my other notes about the game. Wow, okay, I don't know what happened. My brain just stopped. I'm so sorry. It just turned off. Okay, so like the other things I really wanted to say. There was an uncalled hold on that final play that Mahomes was pushed out of bounds, but there would have been a hold on the Chiefs, so it would have been an offsetting penalty, so who knows how things would have worked. Have to bring that up because that could have been a huge break for Cincinnati. I'm going to talk about the third down thing. I've got a pin in there. Don't worry. There's pin. That Jamar Chase catch on fourth down. It's like 4th and 6. Are they actually going to go for it? Are they just kind of lining up? No, they're going for it. Oh, that went 35 yards downfield to start the fourth quarter. That was huge. That was hype. As someone who was going for the Chiefs, I'm like, that was hype. That took balls to do. Good fucking job on that. I loved seeing it. I saw a stat that Joe Burrow in all of his playoff games, which is 7, I believe, has not thrown a touchdown in the fourth quarter. And once again, that didn't happen here. Now, he got them set up. And this is kind of the thing I talk about when I say, I think Joe Burrow is really good. And I feel like that game against the Bills was a game where he balled out. And I mean, I think he played well enough here. But I really want to see like that crazy big Joe Burrow game in the playoffs. Because it's the way people talk about him. Like, damn, this guy is so good. He's so incredible. He's the next great QB. Like, man, if the Bengals win, like he's got to be considered better than Mahomes because he keeps beating him. Like, well, that's like saying you think Brady is better than Manning because he was beating him head to head. But keep in mind, that was the Patriots playing the Colts. Brady does not play against Manning. He played against Manning's defenses, where Manning was playing against Brady's defenses. Those are two very different scenarios. Like, when I see the crazy shit Mahomes can do, I think this is probably the best QB in the NFL because no one else can do that kind of shit. And it's not even just like he does weird, crazy shit. It's he does it and it translates to wins and stats. He shows up on paper and he shows up in the game. I don't, like, it's not that I'm not a Joe Burrow hater, and I feel like that's important to say. I fucking love this dude. I think he's really good. I think I love his poise and his swagger. But I think when it comes to talking about him as like this great QB performer, this great playoff QB performer, it's kind of time to pump the brakes. Because the Bengals are a great team, which feels really weird to talk about how good the Bengals are in the playoffs after watching all like the Andy Dalton and Marvin Lewis years. But they are just a really good team in the playoffs. The offense and the defense. And then, Evan McPherson just nailing every kick that he has to. I saw him have that really good game with Buffalo. I still don't think he threw a touchdown in the fourth quarter. I could be wrong about that, but in this one, he had a few chances, he had a few drives, and they just couldn't get it done. I do have to talk about the third down, the 3rd and 9 that got rerun, because that was fucking weird. And I will not deny that. Now, I will say you can see on a replay the official running onto the field, waving his hands, trying to stop the play. If it wasn't for that angle, I would think that was rigged as fuck. 100%. But the fact that you actively see a guy... Excuse me. But the fact that you actively see a guy running onto the field to try to stop the play, and that the play was not supposed to be run, it's weird, and I don't like that it happened on such a big stage. But I guess it was the right call, because they were trying to get the play canceled to get the clock right. It's just so weird. And the fact that on the next play, Mahomes is sacked, but they get a flag, and it gives them an automatic first down, that makes it look so much more sus. But it was an obvious hold on Eli Apple, so it's not even like, man, like it was such a ticky-tacky call. Like, no, that is a clean call. It's just weird. I'm glad the Chiefs didn't score on that drive. I think that was one of those that, I don't remember if it stalled out around the 40, if it actually stalled out a little earlier. But I was like, if they score on this drive, this game is going to be suspect forever. Like, if they win by a touchdown or win by 3, and this drive was the reason why, put an asterisk in there. Now, I think I've heard people say, like, well, it's like, it still did impact the game because, that took some time off the clock, and then the Bengals only had 3 seconds after that field goal. The Bengals 100% could have, I don't know, my brain's stopping. Like, they could have had time to, like, maybe run a couple plays or at least, like, throw a Hail Mary or something. That totally did fuck over the Bengals. Yeah, no, it didn't. Here's why. Because after the Mahomes run and the penalty on, what was his name? Osai, I believe? Because the Chiefs were out of timeouts and there was only 8 seconds on the clock, they immediately just went for the field goal. If there was time on the clock because of that one weird Chiefs possession, they probably would have just kneeled it down like once or twice. Like, all right, well, let's kill the clock, make sure we can get this done, field goal unit go on. They wouldn't have had a timeout to use, but if there was like, I don't know, let's say there's like 30 seconds on the clock, run a quick kneel down, and then as shit's going on, I guess throw your kicker on there. If he hits it, you win, his time expires. If he misses it, you go to OT. I don't think, I would not say, oh yeah, that time, it fucked over the Bengals because of the circumstances. It really didn't. I do feel bad for Osai. Like, just, again, I think that was his name. If I'm getting it wrong, I feel really bad. Just seeing him sitting there and crying, knowing that I fucked us up. If Mahomes just went out of bounds, they still would have had to run another play or two to get in field goal range. It would have made it a harder kick. I sealed our fates. I feel bad for the dude having to go through that. At the same time, Mahomes was out of bounds, and he extends his arms to push him. You're going to get flagged for that 10 times out of 10. That was not a smart thing to do. Oh, that was another thing. Just remembering that time, like the Chiefs taunting call, which I think that was actually the play that, like 2 plays later or so, is when Mahomes did the weird fumble thing, which it was a taunting call. Like he's looking right, the O lineman's looking right at a dude, basically talking shit right in front of the ref. Good call, but again, something kind of fucked over the Chiefs. Anyways, what I am trying to say with that is, a lot of people are focusing just on the parts that fucked over the Bengals because the Bengals lost and the 3rd and 9 was weird. The officiating went both ways. Both teams lost out on big things and both teams shot themselves in the foot, either with penalties or just dumb mistakes. The 3rd and 9 is fucking weird. But I don't think this game was like rigged or like called super unfairly. I really don't. The holding call, though, against that would have, I think it was on Trey Hendrickson. I think he was the rusher. That was missed. 1,000%. I won't deny that. The only other thing I really have to say is I called it. And the reason I had said the Chiefs are going to win, because I went into like the start of that week thinking, dude, Cincinnati might just win the whole fucking Super Bowl. They're going to win the whole ding-dang thing. And I was like, man, they're not the lovable underdog anymore. Last year, they were the underdog, and the Chiefs were coming off that huge win against Buffalo. They felt like they were unbeatable. And you could tell it in the way they played the Bengals. They played cocky. They were playing with their food. They were too arrogant and looked past their opponent during the game. And the Bengals didn't let them get away with that. This week, the Bengals were the ones who were cocky, and why shouldn't they be? They're in the championship game again against the team they beat thrice in a row, including once this year, including in the AFC Championship on the road last year. Why wouldn't you be? But all the Burrowhead stuff, the weird thing with the Mayor Cincinnati, it's like you guys are now making yourselves the unlikable bunch. You're going to lose. This is going to be a close game. Mahomes is going to win it on the final drive. And that is exactly what happened. So, like I said, I'm 9-3 in the playoffs. I will take it. Eagles, Chiefs, the Andy Reid Bowl, the Kelsey Bowl, whatever you want to call it. I am hoping it is going to be a fun game. I'm not going to make an official pick yet. I will say I'm leaning Eagles because I feel like just their offense, okay, like both teams have really good offenses. I'm like, that Eagles defense is so good. Ooh, like if Mahomes' ankle is still kind of fucked, because he was able to play, he was able to throw and like move a little bit, but you could tell it was still kind of bothering him on a few plays. If he's still fucked when he gets the Eagles, like they're going to eat him alive, man. But that's really all I have to say about this one. I'll see you, hopefully later this week when I make my official Super Bowl pick and kind of go through all the NFL honors and whatnot. But see you.